So, first of all, some people might ask, why are there four gospels, and why don't we need just one, and why aren't there maybe six or seven? Well, many of you know, like some people with lots of money have their own home theater, right? And the one speaker on their television could be more than fine to hear the movie. But when they put four speakers around the room, it sounds like the airplanes are just flying right overhead, right? It enhances the sound, even though all four speakers are projecting the same movie sound. It enhances the sound from four different perspectives. And that's the same thing that God is trying to do through the Gospels. In fact, just follow with me here. And this may seem somewhat technical, but if you will follow this and think of this as you're reading the Gospels, it will help you tremendously. First of all, the reason there's four Gospels is the different things that they provide. First of all, what they're written to. Matthew wrote to Jews. That's why Matthew is so obsessed with the prophecies being fulfilled, because the Jews had all these prophecies of Messiah, so he's answering so many prophecies. Mark is written to a Roman audience. In fact, many people think it was written to Roman Christians who were being persecuted, because Mark was written, best guess, the same year that Rome caught fire and Nero blamed who? The Christians. And so Christians were being persecuted like crazy. Many Christians were, Nero actually even in his gardens for parties at night would light Christians on fire to be the candles that would light the party. And he was throwing Christians to the lions, and a lot of Romans were going along with this persecution because he blamed the fire, the burning of Rome, on the Christians, even though that absolutely was not true. There's a lot of Latin references in the book of Mark that's not in the other ones. In fact, like the other Gospels use Jewish timetables. Like, for example, the third hour in Hebrew concept is 9 a.m. because the sun came up at 6. The third hour was the third hour. They started their day then, where Romans had our timetable. So, and what's funny is some people say, see, look, Mark says this time and Matthew says this time. That's a contradiction in the Bible. No, Matthew, being a Jew, is using Jewish time. Mark, speaking and writing to Romans, is using Roman time. No contradiction there. Mark even makes reference to two guys, Rufus and another guy in the book of Romans, that were the two sons of Simon the Cyrenian. The one who carried the cross for Jesus, his two sons became Christians, and they were probably in this church in Rome. So he's using a lot of Roman references and a Roman audience. Luke is written to the Greek population, and John is to the world, or some people would say to the church, but I believe it would be broader than that, to the world. So they're writing with a different audience in mind. Also, each of these authors has a different style. Matthew is more of a teacher, Mark is more of a storyteller, Luke a historian, and John a theologian. They present Jesus differently, not contradictorily, but from a different angle. Matthew presents Jesus as the Messiah King. And of course, being a Jewish audience, what are they looking for? Looking for a Messiah. Mark presents him as a suffering servant. Luke presents him as the Son of Man. And John presents him as the God in the flesh. Look at the genealogies. Matthew traces it all the way back to Abraham. Why? Because he's trying to prove to a Jewish audience Jesus was the Jew qualified to be the Messiah. Mark doesn't include the genealogy because Romans don't care. They don't care who Jesus is related to. They're like, what did he do? And Luke traces him all the way back to Adam because he's trying to prove that Jesus truly was a man. He was the second Adam. He was the God-man. And also Matthew and Luke have different ways of tracing it, because one is tracing it through Joseph, Jesus' stepfather or adoptive father, and the other one is tracing through Mary, his biological mom. And so therefore, some people look at the two genealogies and say, oh, they contradict. No. One's tracing through mom, one's tracing through dad. And of course, John says, I'm going to trace Jesus' genealogy all the way back to the beginning. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So you see the three different angles there. And then what they feature, or what's the main thing of them, Matthew's talking about Jesus' sermon, and Jesus taught, and Jesus preached, and Jesus did this. Mark doesn't spend a lot of time on Jesus' teaching, but it's all about miracles, miracles, miracles. Why? Because his audience is Roman, and Romans are like, a phrase I often will say is, spare me the labor, just give me the baby. Forget all the details, just tell me what you need. And that's what the Romans were. They were very impatient people because they're used to ruling the world, and they want what they want, and they want it now. And so Mark, you will see, it's interesting, he spends 80% of the book covering 3.5 years. And then he spends a full 20% of the book on the last week. It's like fast-paced, doesn't even go into details of Jesus' birth. Just says, here's Jesus being baptized, miracles, 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 teaching, teaching, teaching. And then he slows down and says, now we're going to spend several chapters on the last week of Jesus' life. Luke spends a lot of time on the parables. John spends a lot of time on the relationships. You know, the disciple whom Jesus loved. And Jesus saw his friends, Mary and Martha, their brother Lazarus died, and Jesus wept. And you see all about relationships. So 4 different angles you can really appreciate. And then when they Matthew focuses on what Jesus said, Mark on what Jesus did. Again, Romans are action-oriented people. Luke was all about what Jesus felt. Jesus, over and over again, Luke talks about how Jesus had compassion on the multitude. And John tells you mostly what Jesus was, that he was God in human flesh. And then the last one here, how they end is really interesting. Matthew ends with the resurrection. Mark ends with the ascension. Luke ends with the promise of the Holy Spirit. And John ends with the promise of Jesus coming again. So do you see how that this is not redundancy? This is like 4 different angles, no contradictions. Again, it would be like a car accident happening outside. And there's 4 witnesses. And the police, what they do when they get to an investigation, especially if they think there's going to be a contradiction or people trying to make up stories, they will separate the witnesses and they'll interview them separately. So let's say they go to witness number 1, say, hey, what happened? The red car hit the blue vehicle. Okay, great. Then they go to another witness, they say, okay, what happened? The man driving the car hit the woman driving this car. Okay, then another one over here. What happened? The Chevy hit the Ford. And then another person could say, this person was speeding and this person just was sitting at the stop sign. Is there a contradiction in those stories there? No, you put it all together and you've got, a red car driven by a woman just sitting at a stop sign, hit by a blue idiot, in a Ford, which you got to be an idiot twice to drive a Ford. Just kidding, just kidding. Okay.